To be speaking with economist and chief executive officer of financial derivatives company, Mr. BISMARCK Rewane, and surprisingly, Mr. Rewane joins us in the studio. Mr. Rewane, it's a rare thing to see you in the studio, so it's a pleasure to have you here physically. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
All right, so let's start with what the trade union, they're asking the government to give a 50% tax cut as a way of giving a bit of relief in this time. And we've heard a lot of countries doing different things as forms of relief because of the Middle East war. I don't think we've heard any from Nigeria, and this is what... Oh, okay.
Nigerian federal government has actually increased the package for public and civil servants. I don't know what that comes to, but obviously there are loads of civil servants and public servants across Nigeria who are getting an increase. But I understand the increase is not effective until November.
And the private sector is left out. We are here.
Private sector... The private sector, you know, what you see is what you get. But anyway.
Okay, but what do you think about the request for a 50% tax cut?
Well, I don't know that. You see, a tax cut means that you've got the income first, then you pay, you know, there's a tax relief window and all of that. I don't think that's going to help. The most important thing, let the income increase and let the revenues increase and let the spending increase. But this is a temporary, and it depends on how long you think the conflict will last. But quite frankly, that's why today we are talking about shock and impact.
But before you go there, Mr. Rewane, you know, we see the price of oil increasing.
Yes.
And we expect that government revenue has increased.
Sharply.
But I mean, we're not ignorant of the fact that oil contracts are done ahead.
Yeah.
So in reality, has Nigerian government revenue increased because of this?
Sharply. Yeah, I know there's some forward contracts. I know that there are leakages in the system, but we expect a minimum of 40 to 45% increase in government revenue, right? And we'll come to those in a few minutes.
All right. So let's start with...
Yeah, here we're looking at some interesting things. The PMI, which measures the level of activity in the country, in Q1 has increased from 51.9 to 53 in Q2. Significant. That's 2.1%. Now, inflation went from 15.38 to 16.23. That's what we are projecting it to be, and that's negative 0.85. The money policy rate, we do not expect the central bank at this time to reduce rates anymore, at least for now. So we think it's flat at 26.5% per annum. The price of Brent, and this is where you're getting interested, $78 in Q1 average. Now it's $110 average in Q2. That is significant. Oil production, marginally higher, 1.38 to 1.48, up 7.25%. And look at this. The exchange rate in the parallel market actually depreciated from 1,439 naira to a dollar to 1,000, actually appreciated to 1,400. Now, gross external reserves, you know, this went above 50 for a time, but now it's about 47, maybe 48, 50. FAC.
Does this have anything to do with the Middle East war? The fact that our reserve is dropping, our rates, has increased, but I believe is this in the parallel market?
In the parallel market. It's actually appreciated, right?
Because in the official market, it's still 1,300.
Yeah, we'll come to a few slides.
All right. But seeing the external reserve drop, I mean, we're celebrating 15. I remember Mr. Cardoso, the other
meeting. We had some obligations to meet, right? So we met our obligations on due date and punctually. So the way to maintain your credibility in the international community is to meet your obligations on due date. And what is interesting here is 47.5, but the net reserves, which dropped all the way to $4 billion, is now at $34 billion. So that's net reserves after all obligations. And don't forget, some of our reserves are held in gold, and the price of gold actually increased. So FAC, 2.5 trillion naira. And the thing you said, there's a windfall in oil, and then we have to ask ourselves, what's the federal government and the state governments doing with the money they get? So there's an oil windfall for the government and an income shortfall for the people. That's really the interesting thing. If you go to the next slide, you'll find that. So Brent up 40%, driven by U.S. conflict, higher oil prices. However, the oil price shock is feeding into domestic prices, and monetary policy is expected to remain tight. Next slide, please.
Next slide, please.
So these are the 5 variables we're looking at. Price of oil, inflation, exchange rate, FAC, and gasoline price. So what has happened to all of this? Price of oil up, inflation is increasing because it has a feed-in effect on domestic prices. The exchange rate has remained relatively stable. FAC has increased, and the price of gasoline, which has a knock-on effect on inflation, is actually increasing. Now, if you go to the next slide, you'll find this is what's happening. US-Iran war began, it was at 77, went all the way to 114, down to 90, and now this. It depends on how the mood in Washington and the mood in Tehran. But what is important is that the Strait of Hormuz remains effectively disrupted, and oil is expected to rebound to $111 in Q2. This is 71% higher than the Nigeria's budget oil price benchmark. When we had our budget, which has just been approved, we used $64 a barrel as our benchmark, and now we're 110. We are in the money. So what do you do with the money? So this is what you see, oil production all the way up here, and FAC allocation all the way higher here. So
yeah, and we notice here, Mr. Rewane, Nigeria's FAC disbursed more than 2 trillion naira, 4-month high.
Yes.
So this is not just the federal government,
it's
but
state governments.
The states, the local governments.
Everybody.
Everybody's getting more money now.
Yes, there's fiscal dominance here. And what do you do with the money? That's the thing. You see, one is when there's a windfall, you also have to do some adjustments. So you'll see the next slide will show you the picture of what has happened. So federal government has approved welfare reform for civil servants. Maybe they were listening to OCFO before now. There are 720,000 civil servants allowances employers estimated. So basically, annual cost is 290 billion. It's nothing. It's a drop in the ocean. FG has also approved 30% debt discount for domestic airlines. Too little, too late, and we'll come back to that because airlines are underwater completely. Federal government also approved 3.3 trillion payment to clear debts of the power sector, but the power sector is in toilet right now. Right? Nigeria increased 2026 budget from 58 trillion, from 58 trillion to 68 trillion. Trillion, I'm not talking about billions. So there's 10 trillion naira increase in spending. But is spending impactful? Does it have the effect? Does it help have a multiplier effect? We haven't seen that yet. Fiscal deficit now projected at 31 trillion naira, and that's the deficit. That's the difference between what you earn and what you are spending. So what the government is doing, the government is borrowing in anticipation of revenue, because the value of the naira today is better than the value of the naira you get. So smart thing to do. And look at Ghana, right? Ghana's 1.9% of GDP is in debt, and South Africa 4.1, we are 4.3, so we are lagging there. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see this is where it happens, right? What have we done with the windfall? Almost all the states are building airports and trying to run airlines. Well, you know the thing about airports? Only 4 airports, 5 actually, are viable. All the others are not viable. And of the airlines in Africa, only 2 airlines are profitable, Ethiopian Airlines and Kenya Airways. So you have unviable airports, unprofitable airlines, and yet the people do not have food, do not have water, do not have power. So
I wonder, Mr. Rewane, before you go ahead, you know, we've had this conversation behind cameras a lot of time, why it does seem like state governments are really crazy about building airports, even when they do know, I mean, that it will not be viable. You have not created any path that would lead to productivity or the usefulness of that airport, and yet we spend millions and billions of dollars, you know, on this airport. Perhaps it's for personal gains.
I'm not sure, but you see, children and toys. So people see aircraft and things like toys. Many of these guys come from a background where they're not used to, they're not elitist, right? So they get carried away by toys, and it makes beautiful photo ops to be opening the airports and sending the aircraft there, but it's not viable. Richard Branson said the best way for a billionaire to become a millionaire is to set up an airline. So you go from billion to million. 1,000 million is 1 billion. So if you want to go from being a billionaire to be a millionaire, set up an airline. And that's what is playing out. And look at what has happened. If you see these airports Ibom Air yesterday announced that they were going to cut back. It cost them about 1.7 million naira to fill an aircraft, to fuel an aircraft. It's now 7 million naira. So they're cutting back. And on this morning's program on channels, you had the United Airlines man saying that they're not viable. So they're not profitable, they're illiquid, and now they're canceling flights. The first thing you see, on-time performance begins to suffer. Second, cancellation and knock-on effects. So
and there's still the threat, I think April 30, the threat of downing tools or shutting down.
Yeah, no, but you see, the government is actually giving them a waiver on taxes. The solution to aviation problem is privatization. If you concession the airports, right, and of course you have private airlines, and reduce the amount of tax you impose on them, they might just become profitable, right? But right now, they are struggling. And the problem with struggling airlines is that if you're not careful, safety begins to get compromised. The direct operating cost of an airline, 40 to 45% is on aviation fuel, right? And about 20 to 30% is on crew, cabin and cockpit crew training and equipment maintenance. So it's a very tough business, but it makes good television views and all of that. Next slide, please.
Next slide, please.
So what we expect is that what is going to happen here is the exchange rate is actually, let me put it this way, it's stable. And you will find that what Nigeria has done, Nigeria has actually paid off all the obligations, forward obligations and forward contracts. They've also allowed, if you look at the PPP value of Naira, which is the efficient way of looking at the exchange rate, it's about 1,196 Naira, while the official rate is 1,356. So what the central bank has done is to maintain a very, very conservative and prudent approach. If they are to use the PPP approach, the Naira will be trading at about 1,195 Naira. But now they're doing at 1.3, and the parallel market is 1,400. The gap is quite narrow, and we are going to see that happen. Now, what do you expect? What we have seen recently is that the stock market has gone on a tear. You were talking about it just now. Or people have made 50, 60% returns. But one thing is clear, there is a bubble, and this correction is inevitable. All right? So what are you going to do? You know what they say, beware the Ides of March, but sell in May and go away. So a lot of people, we are going to be seeing a reduction in share prices, and quite frankly, the future looks, interesting. There'll be election spending. Luckily, we have safe pair of hands on fiscal. We have very stable hands in the monetary policy area. So, generally speaking, we think that the month of April into May is going to be very interesting. But watch out for this correction in the stock market. No question about that. And look out for the listing of the Dangote refinery.
Mr. Rewane, you've come again. You want to bring up our hope.
No,
yes. You want to bring up our hope, and then we start looking and waiting, and we don't know exactly when it's coming.
Don't bottom fish. Just don't worry. It's coming. It's coming.
We should be worried because investors need to keep money aside.
No, you can sell some other shares and buy this.
Depends on what level the market is at that time.
No, the market would have corrected. I can assure you. All right.
All right, Mr. Rewane, thank you
very
so much for being a part of the program. Let's take a break now.